Chapter 15. Part 1. The south sitting room was once again teeming with kids as Vivian and the others stepped inside. Vivian looked to the wood-panelled wall where the stencil of forest green had been the day before, but the image was gone. He supposed, as per the Dean's orders, it had been scrubbed away by Amber and King, or more likely, one of King's lackeys. Mr. Corbin and Miss Turrell coldly completed their roll call. Then after an announcement from Mr. Corbin that lunch would be in half an hour, they both exited without further comment. The room came alive with 100 children's voices. Tradable items were produced, and once again, the sitting room became the Sunday morning marketplace. Vivian once again felt a mild jealousy as Cyan rushed to her brother's arms, but this time to his surprise and delight, she also smiled and waved at him. Token whispered into her ear and then pulled something wrapped in tinfoil out of his pocket, handing it to her. When Cyan unwrapped the foil, Vivian saw it was the second half of the Mars bar that he had given to Token, badly melted, but otherwise whole. She made a cry of delight and gave Vivian a gappy grin before scurrying past him to show her friends. News spread fast through the room that the new kid was packing actual candy, and Vivian was suddenly swamped by kids who wanted to know what he had, how many, and how much it would cost. In return, they offered items that Vivian struggled to find value in: buttons and rubber bands that were said to bring good luck, small bags of creek petals that were supposed to cure cold sores and warts, common afflictions among the kids at Murkwater. Amber enthusiastically tried to sell him a mouldy old horseshoe. "They're really rare," she urged. "Easily worth a block of chocolate if you have one." Vivian saw little value in the good luck that the horseshoe would bring, but parted with his second Mars bar anyway. He liked Amber, and enjoyed seeing the respect the other kids gave her when she made her successful trade. He also enjoyed seeing how upset King was when he heard the news. One angry boy, a little younger than Vivian, upended his backpack at Vivian's feet in a cascade of breakfast, jam, and marmalade single serves. He then pleaded Vivian for a Snickers bar if he had one. The act of desperation caused quite a stir, and the boy was nearly lynched by the onlooking kids. Lewis explained that in the absence of real candy, jam, marmalade, and honey serves were treated as substitutes and were the usual currency of exchange in Murkwater. As such, supply often ran out when people began to hoard them. Clearly guilty of this offence, the boy quickly scrabbled his collection together and fled the scene without success. As Vivian smiled, politely refused offers, and lightly pushed away several items practically shoved under his nose, he spied a figure frantically moving among the other milling children. The figure, at first only familiar, quickly resolved itself into the boy wearing headphones around his neck. Vivian remembered seeing him the day before, first winning the forest game, then being detained along with the ponytail girl by Miss Turrell. Now he seemed possessed, rushing up to groups and asking a single question from each of them, to which he received a negative response. This only seemed to upset him more, and his cheeks were stained red with the trail of tears. Vivian tapped Lewis on the shoulder and asked him who the boy was. Lewis, who was in the middle of a sale, looked annoyed until he saw which boy Vivian was referring to. Then his face fell. "That's Callum," he said. As they watched, Token and the leader of another group, a tall boy with messy sand-coloured hair, moved up alongside Callum, each placing a hand on his shoulder. Callum looked around wildly to be met with empathetic smiles. He appeared to ask the same question to the boys, and Token leaned in close to answer. The effect was immediate. Callum's body slumped as if his strings had been cut. His legs buckled, but Token and the other boy quickly caught him under his arms. Vivian heard the terrible blubbering from where he was standing despite the ambient noise. "Poor bastard," Lewis muttered. Slowly and steadily, both boys guided Callum out of the sitting room. "We better save some lunch for them," Lewis said. "I get the feeling they're going to be a while." Sure enough, Token was not present at their table during lunch, and once again, a gloomy atmosphere hung over the pack as they miserably chewed their undercooked meals. It was only broken when a little girl, barely old enough to walk, approached Vivian's chair. Holding out her tiny, plump hand, she revealed the item she had brought to trade, an empty snail shell. Tank had guffawed as Vivian sat there blinking at the shell, unsure of whether the worthless offer was serious. He had his suspicions that an older girl had put the toddler up to it, but, unable to bear breaking the girl's shy smile, finally gave in. He plucked up the snail shell and made a show of examining it before slipping a precious satchel of popping candy out of his pocket. The girl's eyes grew wide, and Lewis choked on his food. Swallowing the loss, Vivian laid the satchel in her palm and said, "Fair trade." Any regret that he felt was quickly extinguished by the joy in the girl's face as she turned and ambled back to her table. Chaos erupted in the cafeteria, and Vivian was once again bombarded with tradable items. Over Tank shouting and Lewis's squawking, Vivian spied the toddler approach a tall, older girl with raven hair and coffee-colored skin. The girl, clearly into her teens, crouched smiling as the toddler reached her and held out her hand. Carefully, the teenager took the satchel in her long fingers, peeled open the paper seal, and handed it back to the toddler, who shrieked in delight. Kissing the top of the toddler's head, the girl stood, and Vivian finally got a good look at her small round face. Leona regarded Vivian for a moment with her dark, fierce eyes, then turned away with a flick of her long hair. Part 2. I got played, didn't I? Vivian sighed, puffing his white fringe out of his eyes. Token stepped through the kitchen door, wiping his hands on his pants, and looked down at the snail shell and horseshoe that Vivian was examining. Kind of, he mused, but them's some fine PM. Grime-stained and tired, they stood together on yellow beams of kitchen light, while behind them Tank and Lewis finished putting away crockery for the evening meal. The cafeteria was dark and abandoned, the final stragglers leaving well before the pack cleared up and performed their punishment of pots and pans. "So what's this proof you want to show me?" Vivian said, rocking back on his heels with nervous energy. "In a minute," Token said. "We go as a group or not at all." A moment later, Tank and Lewis re-emerged from the kitchen, riding the rich scents of cinnamon and nutmeg. Sporting a pair of oven mitts, Lewis carried a tray of batter figures, not yet the dark brown of fully baked gingerbread. "Sacrificial batch ready," he said with a tight grin. "What the hell are they for?" Vivian asked, surprised. "Travel snacks?" Tank gave Lewis a playful shove. "His girlfriend's going to be pissed when she realizes he's used up her stock." "I can always mix up more, Tank," a faint girl's voice answered from outside in the hallway. Amber stepped through the large double doors at the far end of the cafeteria. "And he's not my boyfriend. He's my partner." She crossed the dark space of the dining room, wrapped in an army green puffer jacket that came down past her knees. With its hood pulled over her head, she reminded Vivian of a caterpillar walking on its end. "Maud's come home already," Lewis said, throwing her an apron. "And it's Corbin on watch, but he's in his office for now." "Don't worry, I can smell that rat a mile away," Amber said, bumping fists with him. "I'll turn off the lights if he comes down here." She turned and gave Vivian a crooked smile. "You're too soft to make a good trader." Her gaze dropped to the snail shell in his hand. "I would have done you a better deal. Still, it's a nice size shell." Her grey eyes searched his. "You having bad dreams?" Vivian stared at her and then at the shell in his hand. "Bad dreams?" "You sleep with the snail shell next to your ear," she said, tying the apron around her waist. "The bad dream comes along, mistakes the shell for your ear, winds itself inside, and becomes trapped. You, meanwhile, get a good night's sleep." Vivian opened his mouth to say he had never heard of such a thing, but Lewis chimed in. "Then the next day, you drop the shell into a glass of salt water and drown the dream. Never bothers anyone else again." Amber glanced across at Token, her elfin face solemn. "How's Callum?" Token's frown deepened. "Not good." The girl nodded and sunk her hands into the pockets of her jacket. "Some of Megan's friends, they said what happened was my fault. They said I shouldn't have given him the lucky band." From her apologetic tone, it sounded to Vivian like Amber was confessing some dirty secret to Token, seeking his judgment, and then he realized that was exactly what she was doing. Callum may not have been in Token's pack, but nonetheless the dark boy was one of the leaders, and leaders needed to be answered to when one of their number got into trouble. Vivian marvelled at the respect that Token held among the groups, but knew it was well deserved. Token, for his part, waved it away. "Ain't my place telling you what's right and wrong," he said. "What did Leona say?" Amber gnawed her lip. "She said it wasn't my fault." Token nodded as he began to push Vivian and Tank toward the hallway. "And what the Queen Bee says goes. I won't be worrying about it." He pointed at the girl. "But you wait for Leona and the others before going back up to your room. Understand?" Lewis lingered a moment longer. He stood awkwardly clutching the tray in his mitts, glancing between the pack and Amber, a look of uncertainty on his face. "You sure you're going to be okay down here by yourself?" he said to her. Amber moved to the kitchen door and grinned back at him. "I'll be fine, compañero. Just don't burn yourself."